JDG take the 1-0 so far in the e-commerce war. Can Suning bring it back, or did JG establish their dominance this year and take a 2-0? Gonna find out in just a bit. I am once again still in Iberia. This is Preacher. Now, Preacher, what went wrong for Suning?
I think that they were just playing way too passive. They were waiting for the engage coming out from Jingdong, and then they've tried to look for the counter engage, but it never really happened because by the time that there were some very smart plays coming out from JD, it was on unequal footing. There were no TPs, it was a four-man clump, and all of a sudden they get taken down without any real chance to fight back.
And at a certain point, it feels like it just came into the hands of JDG, and they were able to do more with the little control they had. You know, Flawless was able to make a pick later on towards the Baron, and that just really turned the game significantly in JDG's favor.
Yeah, that was a beautiful play because as soon as they tried to go for that, it was just a poke out, all-out war against Hacker, and Hacker was caught quite a few times for his team. So no wonder, maybe that was the focal point that Suning do have to really stress out about. It is Hacker falling down. This isn't going to kill him, but it's certainly going to take him out of the entire engagement, and that was really the falling point of Suning because without him, you can't really do too much against that Baron call.
And I think this is one of the strengths coming in from JDG that Flawless demonstrated this series was that that wasn't an isolated play because that took a lot of foresight to set up. He knew that Hacker didn't have flash. How did he know that? He burned the flash earlier by burning his. That was the second Cataclysm that went on Hacker basically on cooldown. Spent the first one to waste the flash. Second one ended up netting him, well, not the kill, but chunked him down significantly and forced him back out of the fight and gave JDG the better angle. And plays like that are what earned him the MVP for last game. Just absolutely insane play coming out from him on that Jarvan.
Yeah, I think it's just Flawless's idea of how to play the jungle. It's not necessarily that he has to mechanically outplay his opponent, but what he needs to do is he needs to just chunk him out, make sure that he's out of the fights, can't contest dragons, can't contest barons, and even if you don't kill him, a 4v5 in the middle of the fight, forcing him to go back so that he can't join, that's going to net your team the advantage.
Yeah, and JDG were able to play through him so well, I feel like. Especially, you know, any cross-map play, even the failed gank bottom, because I feel like it was a good idea, executed rather poorly. They thought they had the 4-man, they didn't really get the damage onto SMLZ in time, ended up dying for it, but a lot of that was facilitated by Flawless's movement across the map.
Yeah, and it was also Suning reacting much faster than JD expected, managing to get to that turret as 5 people and locking them down, dividing and conquering, as well as a little cheeky outplay from Sword Art with the hook. But all in all, it is still JD trying to patch up their errors. They found out their mistakes, and even though they called for TPs later on, they didn't necessarily call for immediate fights afterwards, which is very smart play coming out from them, adapting on the fly. And Suning, they need to adapt as well, because I did hear that they do have a substitution coming into the second game. They're going to take out Hacker and put him Weiwei in the jungle.
And this is something that we've been going back and forth about, and I imagine most LPL fans as well, because it seems like Suning don't know what to do with their talent pool, because they have 2 very capable mids in Maple and Angel. They have 2 very capable jungles in Hacker and Weiwei. They seem to sub them in and out at random, and a lot of times they were trying to keep the duos together for the mid jungle. They were trying to keep it very discreet with Hacker and Maple, and then the other division was Angel and Weiwei. Seems like they're going to be breaking that for this series.
Yeah, they're going to be breaking up the couple, but I think that it's a very good decision to make because Hacker was primarily the person who was caught out in the first game, facilitating to a lot of the Baron losses for the side of Suning, and also not getting enough dragon control in the early game either. Just subbing in a fresh new jungler isn't necessarily for the jungle mid duo, but it is for a set of fresh eyes. Because in that first game, he was watching Flawless path. He knows exactly how Flawless plays, and if he's learnt anything from it, then he shouldn't fall to the same traps like getting chunked down and not being able to participate in fights.
Yeah, the fresh eyes were one of the advantages we were talking about that Suning uniquely had over this. You know, you're going to see the substitution again on your screen now. They can do this kind of thing. JDG, depending on what lane they feel like needs the most relief, can't really, because they can sub out their AD carry, but if they want to sub in Levi, they have to risk communication issues, and they have to risk the fact that he hasn't had much chance to really gel with the team.
And Otis has to go onto the team that lost, because they need to change things up from previous. I like that Suning know their mistakes. Naturally, they didn't really draft towards the early game, so I hope to see that change as well. But also, they switch out Hacker, because maybe he was a little bit too exhausted after the first game, being constantly threatened in the jungle, being the primary pick.
And we were talking a little bit as well about the proactivity or lack thereof was sort of a problem for Suning. I feel like in some situations they actually did okay with it. I'd like to say more, but you know, the bottom lane gank where we were talking about, you know, that was JDG's like big mistake. Well, that was where Suning kind of got to show their stuff a little bit. I'd like to see them take that further with the proactivity, add that in, but still be able to make those split-second decisions, because that's what you're going to need against a team like JDG, who seem to have planned out a lot of their plays far in advance.
I definitely know the point that you're trying to hit on, and that is they need to play towards the mechanical strengths, because there's a reason why they brought in Sword Art and Maple from the LMS, and that is because they are so gifted, as well as making the good shot calls. One of the negatives that I will have to say about them is that they don't really make too many calls post the 15-minute mark. So if there were going to be a huge change-up on Suning just from this one change-up, it has to be Weiwei also being the primary shot caller, making sure that after 15 minutes, Suning still make these proactive plays. Don't just wait to get caught out and then inevitably lose these team fights because it's better for their enemies. They need to go for these plays themselves.
Do you think we're expecting similar drafting down in the bottom lane? Because we were talking a little bit about how the Lucian doesn't seem necessarily much like Imp style compared to something like the Kai'Sa or even the Vayne.
Well, it didn't do as well as we expect him to do on an ADC, so I do still expect it to be changed out. But hey, if Lucian Braum is open, then there's no real reason why you shouldn't pick it up for your team.
JDG coming out hard and fast with the bans. They apparently were not very happy with having to deal with the Yorick last game. Was a bit of a thorn in their side, so they're going to take that, the Neeko, and the Rek'Sai off the table. And Suning, very predictably, going to ban away the Zoe from Yagao.
And even though 9.4 very heavily nerfed Urgot, we have seen that a lot of these players do like to revert back to what they know, tried, and tested. So even though Xiao could be a little bit weaker in the matchup, because his Yorick is taken off the board, I think the only other champion that he has in his repertoire that he's shown good success on is the Renekton. So it's either that or the Urgot.
We're going to hope we'll see a little bit of action there, but so far we see a lot of focus around that 2v2 once again. JDG going to lock in the Lissandra there, presumably for Yagao. And Suning actually want to get that Sword Art Galio, or potentially back onto Maple.
Yeah, the arena combo once again, just to make sure that if you can lock somebody down in the J4 ultimate, then the Galio gets a free knockup with his and can also join the team fights. I didn't hate that part of the composition because Maple still managed to roam a lot. It was pretty much just the very first one when he only had access to rank 1 ultimate that he started to fail, and oh boy, this is very good.
All right. I'll take a Nocturne. I really like to see this. It's got a lot of level 6 aggression.
Yeah, and what I love most about the Nocturne into the Galio is that if you cannot see your target as a Galio, you cannot activate your ultimate. So Nocturne's Paranoia completely blocks out that ulti until it might just be too late.
Now the final pick is going to lock in the Vladimir there for Zoom in the top lane.
Doing a lot for Zoom, because if Zoom cannot go on one of the champions that he can push with, then he'll go on one of the champions that he can bully with and also frontline with. He's had a pretty good record on the Vladimir, so there's no real question why Jingdong wants to pick that up. But now ADCs are still bare for both of these two teams, so if they need to start banning them away.
You could go for the quadruple AD carry ban, but I don't know how well that's going to go versus something like the support bans, because Alistar's still on the field, Braum still up, Thresh as well. I mean, if you really want to consider that a major point of contention. So there's still a lot for both AD carry and support.
The funny thing is that if you take Thresh off the board, then there's a big question mark onto Sword Art. What exactly does he go for? I like how the targets are not necessarily towards the supports, because that would limit both of their pulls. It's sort of a handshake agreement where both of these two teams say, I need this aggressive support, so I'm simply going to leave it up for my enemies. But it's very odd that the Syndra ban is coming out.
Well, I mean, there is the potential that Galio's flex down into the bottom lane. Maybe they want to make sure that it isn't, or if it is, they don't have to deal with something that does well into the Lissandra. So they're going to give that a little bit of safety, and we're going to see a second AD carry ban come out from Suning.
It's just a percentages game. You know for certain that ADCs are still needed to be picked, so I would like that coming out from JD, because Suning have the first pick after all of these bans. But first pick available, I would still have to say that SMLZ, he's been playing a lot of the Lucian recently, so despite the fact that he hasn't found that much success, it's because of the playstyle, not because of the champion. He can still go for it.
It looks like the Tahm Kench ban coming out, removing a little bit of that safety for the SMLZ Sword Art duo lane. So I want to see what SMLZ is going to lock in here. He's got 15 seconds to choose which bot laner they prioritize more.
The poke could do well for this team composition, because other than that, it's just hard engage and team fights. One huge thing is that the Tahm Kench is banned away, so you won't see the natural duo of the Ezreal Tahm Kench for double safety in the bottom lane, but Sunin can still go for the aggression. I mean, Alistar is up, like you said. That is still a very potent support for the team, and if they needed to engage with that, they can definitely find a lot of success with that comboed with the Jarvan and Galio.
It looks like it's going to be the Lucian again here for
Alright.
Imp. I mean, he did well on it last game,
Okay.
especially combo with the Braum, but oh! Maybe a little bit of submarine combo? No? Okay.
Alright.
Maybe not JDG.
They were
I
playing
don't
with
know.
their hearts. Yeah, they were trying to tease it out, especially with the Tahm Kench ban. That is definitely something that you could go for, the Shen naturally being countered. But the Braum is just simply stronger. So with all of this said and done, I would just have to expect that either the Alistar is locked in, because the Thresh last game, he didn't really hit his mark with all of the counter engages that we were expecting.
He didn't hit his mark, but I think he performed very admirably, so I'm happy to see that Suning look like they're going to be giving him the Alistar, maybe a little bit more potential for the engage there in the bottom lane, and keep him having this potential as the counter engager, the primary engager, give him the playmaking potential.
But the biggest thing that comes out of this Alistar is a huge bridge in the early game, because while Jarvan can catch people out with his flag drag, you've also got the Alistar. So even if there is a flash, there can still be some follow-up coming out from Sunin. It's a very smart composition that provides so much knock-up, very good early game potential, and Sunin are just... they have an entire platter ahead of them in terms of where exactly they can use that, because they can dive and they can also pick out in the jungle.
Well, my question is going to be looking towards the top lane again, because Xiaoao and Zoom, they sort of went on roughly even footing for most of that last game, but Zoom did come out ahead, and I'm concerned again with Vladimir's late game scaling. Is that just going to be a repeat?
Well, it's going to be team fights versus solo potential, because the Irelia will want to dive into the backline. Naturally, it will be very risky this time around, because there isn't too much follow-up. That'll have to be for the mid-line lockup to make sure that Imp can free fire. But other than that, it will have to really depend on where exactly the position is, because we saw in the very first game that JD like to pull the trigger whenever there are uneven numbers, and if they do that, it doesn't even matter what the 5v5 comp can do, it won't do it.
Now, I want to look towards the jungle matchup as well, because you have two junglers who this time are very dissimilar in what they do at different stages of the game, because at level 6, yeah, both of them have really impactful ultimates. Nocturne, of course, with the Paranoia, can do a whole lot for your team. But J4 has the advantage that his early ganks are a lot stronger. Yeah, maybe you're not going to duel out the Nocturne necessarily in the 1v1, but you get to affect the lanes a lot sooner than your opponent.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. I just want to see the Jarvan make more of an impact in the lanes, because hopefully Weiwei should know where his priorities lie. He knows that he was brought in to influence the lanes more, to make sure that he doesn't simply lose the matchup. And going against Flawless on the Nocturne, he has a whole lot of breathing room to do so. The first 10 minutes are essentially his.
Well, with that freedom, he might be able to get his team ahead, look more towards that team fighting you were talking about. We're going to find out if Suning can bring it back to the 1-1, or if JD get the 2-0 here in game number 2 of JD Gaming versus Suning.
Oh, we just straight cut out Sunin. What was going on there?
That seems unfair.
That was a little bit rude, but that's alright, because it was pretty much biased a little bit anyway with all of the speakers and stuff. Let's talk about the Sunin composition to give him a little bit more love, Nibiria, alright? I quite like the early game coming out from this composition. As soon as you get to the level 6 mark, I expect to see them all group up and clump, because the level 6 power spikes are so much stronger than JD's. JD's want to go much more later, so the bridge tools available for Sunin with the Alistar, with the Jarvan as well, can be exploited very early on.
Well, and as well, I mean, you look at the different lanes, and they also have some earlier power spikes. But the bot lane's one of my favorite places to look, especially when you have a storied player like SMLZ and like Imp. And Lucian you'll always hear about the level 2 power spike, but Alistar, once Sword Art gets to that level 3, has the potential to engage, and with Weiwei having the early game jungler in the Jarvan, he might be able to do something about that.
Well, it's not even the level 2 power spike anymore, because Lucian's now like to start W. It is nerfed later on, but it just provides so much poking and trading potential in the early game. I expect to see Imp exploit that to the maximum efficiency, because that is how the player plays. Whenever he's playing an early aggressive champion, he likes to go aggressive, and when he plays a late game champion, well, he likes to go aggro in laning phase anyway.
Well, we might see the junglers passing here and trying to scrap each other out a little bit.
Right, Flawless knows this, so he might want to take this slowly. He's got more HP.
He should win the 1v1 at this point. Going to land the Q, but that's a lot of ground he has to cover because of the flag and drag from Weiwei. So Weiwei will get out with the blue buff. Now has 2 buffs, and Flawless will just be, well, a little bit content with the scuttle grab.
He has to block out Weiwei from this point onwards. And already we're seeing the maximum efficiency of the trade coming in. Weiwei being substituted, stealing away the buff. And if he goes down to the bottom side, he should be able to triple buff Flawless. So already we can see a difference in impact. It's not going to be the lane focus in mind, it's going to be the individual skills.
Maple having a little bit of trouble here in the early game with these 1v1 trades, but there's a lot of sustain on the side of Yagao, so it's not entirely surprising. But now, might see the junglers scrapping it out again. Xiaowao here in the top lane, Zoom. It's going to be the 2v2. Flawless, good spell shield to drag, or dodge the flag and drag.
They both managed to defuse the situation, which ultimately works very well for Flawless, because it means that he walked through, and tanking a couple of hits is realistically the best case scenario, not allowing Weiwei to go ahead. But
oh, Ignite already down onto Sword Art. He's just going to headbutt back, try and save his AD carry, but SMLZ, 2 autos to stun, but Imp doesn't want to go for... Oh, there he is, so close.
So aggressive as well. They know their power spikes. As soon as they can get enough down, and as soon as Lu Mao can hit one of his Qs, they go all out aggressive. And even though Alistar gets very tanky, he needs level 6 to do so. So early game, not that much potential. Imp immediately picks that one up.
Once again, Imp and Lu Mao looking really good here in the early stages of this game, being able to catch out with those stuns quite easily. Bit of a concern here for Suning, because if this follows the same trend as last game, Imp's going to get out of hand pretty soon.
And JD are finally doing something that LGD couldn't have done for all of this time, and that is change up Imp's playstyle. They've decided to revert him to an early game ADC, and when you use those mechanics in laning phase in a straight 2v2 without anybody interfering, turns out that Imp is a pretty good player.
Well, I mean, I hope that that was being questioned by no one after we've seen him come back. You know, Imp has been a mechanically talented player for pretty much all of his career, but on LGD, he wasn't really given the tools to succeed, and now on JDG, it looks like it's no longer the case. Scuttlecrab going to spawn here, but more importantly, Flawless in a lot of trouble, has the shield, but they're going to go in regardless. The teleport coming in from Suning as well. SMLZ comes in, trying to poke out Lu Mao, forces the flash over the wall. Flawless and Lu Mao will survive, but both are down a flash now.
And you got to call it out when you see it. That was actually Sword Art being a little bit late to the rotation, coming in to join Weiwei in the brush. If he came sooner, then Flawless couldn't have seen him enter, and that he would have been called into the bait. So it was fortunate for Flawless that that was just a little bit slower than what he expected.
Yeah, a little bit slow on the rotation, but still a good result for Suning, able to burn 2 flashes. And now we look at the top lane a little bit here, and Xiaowao having a pretty decent time trading into Zoom, and already you can see him chunk down to about 20% here. He is having quite the struggle in this top lane.
And this isn't any sort of excuse, because in the first game we could have at least said there are ghouls and that adds to the CS without really adding to the gold, but this is just straight minions between Vladimir and Irelia, and Xiaowao is doing so well in this matchup. He's already more than 10 CS ahead by the 6-minute mark, which is really quite formidable because he's going to be building that lead regardless, and he's always going to have the better backs in terms of power spikes.
I would say that this is not terribly out of character for Zoom, because we don't know him as someone who instantly in the lane grabs hold and never lets go. It's more slowly over time, he will take over the game eventually, but it's going to be up to Xiaowao now to take the pressure he has. Sort of like his bot lane might be having trouble with. Sword Art already getting stunned up. He is so low. Might not be able to get the kill, but Imp seems to think otherwise. Blows the heal.
But it still manages to bully Sword Art out. And when you add all of this together, it adds up to about a whole level discrepancy between the two supports. That could be the deciding factor between them winning a fight and losing one, especially seeing as Lumao can now get his ultimate freely because of the numbers difference.
It's a level discrepancy, sure, but I mean, look at the CS differential. SMLZ is actually up in CS despite the constant aggression of JDG, so they're getting leads in the tempo of the lane. They're getting leads in experience, but they haven't gotten a lead in gold yet.
So let's just see if they can exploit the level 6, because if they can't, then it still is a very good lead for SMLZ. Naturally, you expect this coming out of an Ezreal because he can use his Q as long range without really getting into some dangerous situations, but you would also have to imagine that with all the Klepto procs as well, he's richer than we would imagine.
I feel like level 6 is just the name of the game for a lot of this game. You know, now we're looking at the bot lane for level 6. We were looking at Flawless to get his level 6, and now it's inching ever closer because you look at Weiwei, he's already gotten 6, which means Flawless shouldn't be far behind.
Just trailing a little bit, because of course he did lose his blue buff in that initial invade, which does add quite a bit of experience to the pool. And also Weiwei has just been faster to a whole lot of these rotations. This is very clever though, because Lumao can get a successful stun off down onto Xiaowao, then that will open up an avenue for Zoom to put down damage, and Flawless is right behind.
Yeah, 3-man gang coming up here into the top lane. Lumao looking like he might want to back. They're going to get vision on the Infernal Drake, so they make sure they don't miss out on that. But look at Sword Art. He's going to be rotating up through the mid. It looks like this just might be an all-out brawl towards the top side.
He doesn't even care about the minions spotting him out. He just simply goes in that direction because he wants to start contesting for this. In 1 minute 30, Herald is going to spawn, and I have a feeling that even though there's an Infernal to start us off into game number 2, just like game number 1, the priority will still be on the Rift Herald just because of how much turret plating gives you.
It's a lot of gold that could go into either team's pocket right now. Suning, just through the merits of good CSing, are up almost 1,000 gold here at only 9 minutes. But not a lot of action so far. It's been a slower paced game, especially here in the LPL.
It's very slow because we expect a whole lot more to come out of this bot lane. Sure, it already got a 2v2 duo kill, but they can still do more in terms of rotations. We've already seen him move more towards the middle lane. That's what he's known for. That's really his style. So if he wants to exploit that and get some kills down onto Mabel, who's still relatively not that tanky yet, he could do so.
Xiaowao looking for the stun because Weiwei is here for the support. We've seen Xiaowao win a lot of these 1v1 trades at the very least, but doesn't look like Weiwei wants to stick around, wants to dedicate that much time up here in the top lane when his laner's already up a disgusting 40 CS.
It's pretty bad to look at. I don't even want to take a look at that right now just because Zoom is so far behind, and that's going to start adding up in terms of the items. He's only got a Kindle gem for himself, which doesn't really do anything for a Vladimir other than make sure that he can stay in the lane to continue CSing anymore. Whereas Xiaowao, his next back should realistically be a Trinity Force. He doesn't even need to wait for any other power spike because he's not being threatened by Zoom.
Yeah, he's got the Tiamat, he's got all the pushing power he's going to need, picked up a longsword and Ruby Crystal for himself. He's sitting pretty. He's having a good time up in the top lane, and this is the real big lane differential here, but SMLZ, it's a lot of damage just from press the attack. We're post 6, but that didn't involve any ultimates, and SMLZ chunked to half.
SMLZ going just that little bit aggressive, immediately being exploited by Imp. We see him coming back into form. I don't want to make this completely the Imp show, but it's those little trades that he is starting to find the advantage, and already in the bottom lane, a focus is coming.
I like this. Both junglers here on the bottom side of the map. They know Infernal Drake and the fate of the bottom lane is in both their hands at this point. Weiwei trying to scout out with the clearance. JDG have both their mid laner and the jungler down on the side of the map, so if a fight does break out, they're definitely favored. But look at Maple as well. He's got his ultimate on the flank, so this could be a potential 4v4 or even 5v5 if the top laner's TP.
He's ready and he's waiting. But one of the things that we need to mention is that Suna have a very good front line right now, whereas JD do not until much, much later in the game. At the very least, when Vladimir can start to tank up and become a nuisance, he's pretty much just a puddle at the current moment. So JD, they play very fearfully despite pushing up in the bottom lane. They need to make sure that they respect where Weiwei is, because if they ever overextend without the vision to know where this Jarvan is, they could all come crumbling down and they won't have any lanes necessarily in the advantage.
JD did, however, secure 2 turret plantings there in the bottom lane, so they're starting to crawl a little bit of the lead back. It has not expanded in Suning's favor at all yet, but this Infernal Drake is still going to be one of the first objectives to fight over now that the Rift Herald has spawned, but still no one seems interested in going for it.
It's not a focus point because there aren't a lot of kills to get around. And with all of this CC in your composition, you prefer that over getting these objectives. But this is very smart coming out from Wayway because he tries to negotiate the jungle in such a way that he will never give away his position to Flawless. Right now, if you're the side of JD, you don't necessarily know where the jungler is. And while your lanes can play safe, you're giving away important objectives.
Especially now. CS lead has shortened a little bit in the top lane. I'm not going to stop touching on it because it's just so important and it's such a departure from last game. And now that Wayway has the Rift Herald in hand as well, this could be a potential point for Suning to break open the game.
Top right side of your map does tell you that it's 1 minute 30 until turret plating is gone. So the best time to use it is now. Wayway cannot necessarily delay unless he wants to choose it, to use it in order to get some pressure down onto the Dragon, but he can just get a 2-for-1 deal, and realistically with Xiaoao pushing so well in the top lane and that massive CS advantage, there's no reason why he shouldn't be keeping his eyes towards that side of the map.
Just got 1 minute left, and he's going to back through it, so maybe he's going to save it until after the platings, prioritize the map movement rather than just prioritizing the gold from the tower platings. Now, vision has been cleared out for JDG towards the Infernal Drake, so they might look to take it soon. They have had the push so far in this lane bot, so they have potential positioning for it.
Naturally, with the Infernal Drake up, that is where they should be turning their attention to. Just want to highlight the fact that Wayway has chosen to stick to this without necessarily using it. He's looking to get a gank down before he puts it down. Actually, no, he just wants to get the advantage and the numbers.
Now they have two people in the top side. They will pick up the Infernal Drake, but that means Zoom is in a lot of trouble in the top lane. Turret plating will be up for this first charge, and it might fall down while they're still up there. Zoom gets stunned up. Wayway not going to go for the engage just yet. Hemoplague has been blown by Zoom, just trying to pressure off. And that will do quite a bit of damage to Wayway. The tower is still going to live through this if no other intervention comes.
It definitely foils the plan coming out from Suning because they wanted to take this turret, get another successful charge off, and then get pressure down onto another part of the map. Now that the top lane turret still stands, it means that Wayway has to pay one more gank towards it, which could be the difference because Flawless is looking bot.
Flawless looking for a gank here, and the flash engage, beautiful by Sword Art, and there goes the Vanguard's edge. Imp is already dead. Lumao trying to do his best, but Zoom just dove under tower, 1v4. I'm not sure what he thinks he's going to get out of this other than a used flash. Sword Art looking potentially for the chase down. The Scuttlecrab move speed should save him. Wayway has the Kata, going to drop it there on Zoom's face, and Zoom goes down as Suning pick up 3 kills in the bottom lane.
Crushed in their attempt to try and dive there. They didn't really have the calls on point. You can already see Flawless and Yagao trying to move away from the bottom side of the map because they didn't want to go for the dive, but immediately Suning pulled the trigger. Sword Art goes to the engage, and with all of that said and done, it is what we asked for. It is Suning playing much more aggressive and not waiting for the counterplays. And with the hesitancy of Flawless, it worked out well.
Now JDG looking at a 3K gold lead off the back of this bottom lane play.
Yeah, you have to watch for Flawless of what exactly he doesn't do with his ultimate. He pulls it, but by the time that he does, Imp is already dead, and he doesn't want to jump into the situation. Zoom thought that he would have dive buddies, but without anybody else there, he has to burn everything in order to get out.
Xiaoao now looking at this top lane tower, no longer turret plating on the map, so not a whole lot of defenses for the top tower, and Xiaoao still looking pretty. Has the Trinity Force as well. Like you said, that's the power spike he was waiting for.
And now he can start grouping up. That is the biggest part of it. And with the turret plating down, you would expect all of this, but sort of...
Uh-oh. 3v2 in favor of Suning, but it looks like Lumao actually surviving for a surprisingly long time. SMLZ gonna blow the ultimate, but Lumao with a beautiful stopwatch saves himself. Wayway has to use the stopwatch of his own. It might be able to take him down. Imp does get the kill, and Suning back out. JDG victorious.
That was very long survivability coming out from Lumao, and even using the stopwatch at a very good time to stall it out even further. It was pretty much just a stall game coming out from JD. It looked like such a good collapse coming out from Suning, but they got outplayed once again just because of the slowness of their reactivity.
They're trying to get Imp ahead here. Once he can get those 2 items, the Black Cleaver, Blade of the Ruined King, that's when Lucian starts to be a threat. You know, SMLZ's been able to build up his Iceborne Gauntlet and his Manamune, but not stacked yet, so Imp will have the damage advantage soon.
should be looking to exploit that with the rest of the team, but top lane.
There's the paranoia into the top lane. Xiao gonna get feared out, but not enough damage coming in from Flawless and Zoom. Will just force him off for the time being, and JDG going for a pick down in mid now. Maple getting so low, Imp just free firing onto him. Will pick up yet another kill, and this one's a shutdown.
So immediately, as soon as they pulled the trigger top, they actually wanted to use that as a disguise for what they wanted to do mid. Catching out Maple with Yagao, they can now start busting down this turret.
Turret is so low. Once again, no towers taken.
SLD.
That's the dive onto Yagao. Just too close, attacks anyone under the tower so quickly. And now Suning will defend their mid lane tower.
The entire story of this series, Nabiri, is pretty much these two teams not respecting what the other members are, not really getting vision down, and fighting with imperfect information. Not respecting that SMLZ is there, JD lose that last engagement.
Now JD being very careful in the mid lane so that they don't fall victim to the same mistake again. This time, they'd be the ones getting dove on though, so they'd have a better chance. And Flawless starting to work on a Guardian Angel for himself.
Of course, that's the natural AD part that you would expect coming out of a Nocturne. It's just pretty much just Flawless trying to be another damage threat to alleviate the pain from Imp so that he can start free firing. But take a look at this. It's way too much to deal with for JD. They're trying furiously to rotate members into the mid lane, but the hesitancy and how slow they're doing it could ultimately be their demise. We expected Suning to play much more aggressive, and if they keep on going like they have, then it looks very good.
Imp hasn't had time to back and pick up his items until just now, and the next dragon, another Infernal, is going to be up here in just 10 seconds. Baron on the field in 1:30 as well. So this could be potentially another fight between JDG and Suning.
The Scuttle Crab advantage does go over to Suning, so JD are fighting an uphill battle once more. Apart from that, you have to take a look at where these two teams stand in terms of scaling, because Vladimir is at the point where his ultimate is fearful enough that Suning cannot clump.
Now JDG playing very carefully because they know they can get dove on. Sword Art channeling the flash. Gonna go in for the engage, gets two. The follow-up Heroes enters, but a great Glacial Fissure is going to stall the fight out a little bit for JDG. Paranoia goes down to stop the vision a little bit on the side of Suning. A good ultimate there in the backline. Imp is still alive. And not for much longer, he gets knocked up by the CC, and Suning turning around the double kill so far for SMLZ, and it looks like that'll be the fight. Oh, double flash.
All right, that's what we expected coming out from Suning. They do not waste a single second. As soon as Flawless went out of that fight, it was pretty much SMLZ free firing onto the enemy. But Maple, oh boy.
Okay. Well, Maple just assassinated Flawless, and Weiwei's going to be able to pick up the Infernal Drake, so this is looking really good for Suning. Now a 4K gold lead, evening up the Dragons, 1-to-1 Infernals.
That was outright disrespectful coming out in Iberia. I don't really know what was happening in the mid lane, but they keep on going even further. It's not over.
Nope, looking for the second tower here. Should be able to get it. Not a whole lot of contention because, again, Zoom is still so far behind from the early laning phase.
And Zoom, look, he's coming on board. We were talking about the Irelia versus Vladimir, but we'll have to shelve that because that was an excellent engage coming out from Sword Art. It was good enough from JD to the point where they negated the entire Galio ultimate, but Flawless completely out of this fight, and only re-engaging at the latter half was not enough to bring it back. And every single member of JD falls to SMLZ. The story of this team is the fact that if you give SMLZ a good team fight, he's not going to take damage because he can just skirt around it with his ease.
Now SMLZ setting himself up pretty well with the items. He has finished the transformation on his Muramana. That's taken care of. The Iceborne Gauntlet is well picked up, and the second tier is starting to stack. So he's starting to scale up pretty heavily, and he's got some pretty good items alongside him. Maple, the Rod of Ages is almost complete.
Huge point out that he also has a QSS as well as Mercurial Treads to make sure that Yagao cannot lock him down. This is an SMLZ who just wants to put out consistent DPS and not be interrupted doing so. It's very rare that we see ADCs prioritize that so early on, but simply because of the threat coming out from both Yagao and Lumao, he goes for it to ensure that he's never going to be locked down.
Xiao trying to push down into the bottom side, but Zoom is here once again to try and stop it. He's not been doing so well in the 1v1 so far, but at this point he's starting to build up items. He has the Proto Belt. He's looking towards maybe the Spellbinder as well to try and aid him in this 1v1. Make sure he doesn't have no chance of winning it.
Yeah, look, he's not too happy in the 1v1, but he wants a team fight. Asking you shall receive though.
There's the gank coming in from Weiwei, the hero's entrance to follow it up. And Flawless, the first one to get taken out. JDG, Zoom trying to put some damage down, has the Crimson Rush, should be able to heal himself back up. Imp has finally entered the fight, but it may be too little too late as SMLZ has already picked up a double kill. Zoom by himself under the tower, needs to save himself. Crimson Rush not going to come out in time. And Suning are just wiping the floor with JDG this game.
And he gets absolutely popped. He goes from 0 health to 100 health and then right back down to 0 because everybody focuses him under the turret. Sunen's control of these team fights is immaculate.
Yeah, barely getting out of there one, but the Flawless duet will catch them with the stun, will secure most likely this tier 2 tower for Suning. They've come out of this a lot more ahead. 7,000 gold now, 3 tower advantage.
This is the advantage of being proactive with your gold lead. Already getting just a 1k early on, they push it to much, much more. They go for the dive because Zoom is so split out. Flawless uses that ulti just to try and get out of the Jarvan ultimate, but it's too late because he runs into the ADC. And from this point onwards, without an extra damage threat in the Nocturne, they fall due to superior numbers. Zoom eventually gets caught out because it's just 1v4, and even under the turret, he can't survive for too long. And it's just Sunen picking up these fights where in game number 1 they were too hesitant to do.
A lot more proactive this time, no longer having to rely on that reactivity, and JDG look a little bit caught off guard themselves. They don't seem to be able to make the proactive plays that won them the first game, and now they just feel like they've been caught behind on tempo, caught behind on strategies. They're just trying to get some vision in their own jungle now.
And Maple also teleported to the top side of the map, Nabiria. This is important because when you take a look at the bottom side, Yagao is pushing. Sure, he does have teleport, but there are no good wards for this Lissandra to come in on. She can't go to the front line, she can't be flanking as well, she needs to go behind her team, and that is very difficult to execute if there is a Baron focus for this team, which is, of course, the next natural objective. I think we're blessed this game because we do have 3 Infernal Drakes on the board, so both of these two teams, they have to be desperate and very careful as to where they put their attention.
Both of them also have to be very careful in the next 45 seconds specifically because the 3rd dragon of the game will be coming up, and it is yet another Infernal. So far, 3 have come out this game. This is an important objective for both of them to fight over, but I don't know how much of a chance JDG have of winning that.
This looks very slim if they are the team that's being engaged on, but they do have very good pick potential. So if Lurimau and also Flawless can work together to make sure that they can lock one member down, that is their avenue to success. That one member, by the way, cannot be SMLZ because of the QSS.
SMLZ, a lot of safety on that Ezreal. QSS plus his E plus his flash still available. Paranoia going into the top lane. They try and get Maple, but the Glacial Fissure not going to land onto him, and now Suning are here for their engage of their own. They won't be able to find it, but that was a lot of ultimates blown to try and catch out Maple with no results.
And the hugest punishing factor for JD is that they don't get anything out of it for all of those resources. So now, once again, the map being reset and with no Nocturne ultimate to re-engage for Jingdong, there is a lot of pressure going down, and it's a free Infernal because they know Baron cannot be contested on the other side.
Infernal going to be a quick pickup here for Suning, making it their 2nd dragon so far. And Xiaoao is just continuing to split push where he can. He's now expanded his CS lead to 70 and has the Titanic Hydra on top of that. So he is just wave clearing incredibly quickly, and there's not a whole lot JDG have to answer.
Breaking the even stature of scaling with the Infernal Drake. Now it finally goes over to Sunen, so they have an advantage at the very least in terms of these fights. Still no vision down for JD, so they have to come in blind towards this Baron.
So they have to know what's happening by this point. They know everyone's been off the map. The teleport coming in from Zoom as well will force off the Baron, and the Baron resets for the time being. So that's a victory in and of itself for JDG.
Because already, JDG, they need to decide where they allocate their pressure. They've got the inside track to mid lane, so they will be pushing that down. And because Sunen already took down top turret, it's got to be a blank response. All of a sudden, it's very smart plays from JD, but they need to start getting more objectives. Nabiria, I don't like what's happening right now because Zoom is moving towards the bottom side of the map. We already saw him use teleport. This could be very easily exploited.
Well, especially because Baron's up. I mean, that's the big thing. The big focus this game right now is the potential for Suning to do Baron. We saw them burst it down fairly quickly, and you have 2 laners who could have teleport, but neither have it right now. Xiaoao still has his. SMLZ still has his. if Suning want to go for that Baron, they have the wards, they have the teleports. They can just rush it before JDG respond.
Yeah, and that's the most crucial thing about this. The fact that Zoom cannot join the rest of the team fight. The biggest question is, what is his next power spike that he's looking towards? Because he needs to get this on his back. If he doesn't, then he might well just cost the next team fight for his entire team and also maybe a Baron.
I would assume he's just looking for the Zhonya's, gives him CDR, gives him some safety, but he's not really having the opportunity to do so. Because of the aforementioned positioning problems, he has to be so careful when he's pushing down into this bottom side to make sure he doesn't overextend, to make sure he doesn't overcommit to pushing bot, and it gets manipulated and used by Suning so that they can take the Baron.
And now that he's shown his face bottom side, this is the best time for Suning to call either a pick on the top side or the Baron outright. Both of those two can do very well for the team, but if he just simply gets called up to counteract the 5v5, all of a sudden, Xiaoao gets free reign.
Looks like they were looking for the pick at the very least. They're spread out throughout the jungle of JDG, and Yagao, he's going to get caught. No Glacial Path to follow up, and that's the pick they were looking for. The Frozen Tomb won't do a whole lot to save him, and he finally falls down to Weiwei.
Now 4v5. It's the best time for JD to just bust down these turrets. Don't even need to go for the Baron because they've got the numbers advantage onto the objectives.
Suning will back off, though, and they're headed straight towards that Baron. They've got the vision on it, and they know that JDG have no way of contesting. No culling, no Yagao for 30 seconds. In the bot lane, Zoom has to be stuck there so that Xiaoao can't just push down the inhibitor tower.
Yeah, already you can see that Suning are pushing their advantage as much as they possibly can, although Lumao is coming in.
Oh, Imp barely dodging out the kill there. He's able to take down SMLZ. Survives for a little bit longer, but not a whole lot. And now they need to stall out a little bit. A great ultimate there from Xiaoao. Might stop that from happening, though. And Zoom has to do what he can. He has the Crimson Rush. He has the Hemo Play, but he doesn't have any health left. And they will pop the GA of Flawless and take down almost the entirety of JDG. Yagao, the only remaining surviving member, as Xiaoao picks up a triple kill.
So even though Suning out-rotate and win that fight because of superior numbers due to the fact that Yagao got picked out earlier, it still was a very valiant attempt from Imp to take out SMLZ solo. That was pretty much what he was trying to do to keep his team into this game, but it just didn't quite work out because of the uneven numbers. They didn't have to go for that fight, but they still chose it regardless.
Well, he got taken out, and he doesn't have any damage left for his team. But so now Suning know Flawless is down, no Smite, Zoom is down as well. They're just going to turn straight onto this Baron and burn it down fairly quickly. And JDG is going to be their Hail Mary if they want to try and stop it.
Yeah, Yagao can definitely not go into this. And more importantly, he's standing in an aggressive place. Sword Art can re-engage onto him if he wants.
Doesn't look like they want to go for it. A little bit of mana deficiency there for Maple. And Lumao trying to chase down, trying to threaten a little bit onto Suning, stall out what he can of the Baron. It's 3 minutes left that they're going to have to contend with, and Cloud is coming up in just 30 seconds.
Here's the answer right now would be to 1-4. However, it all started with Sword Art bumping Imp into the back line, and you thought that he was a goner, but he takes down SMLZ. Nonetheless, though, it is still neutralized because Suning are pushing down. Yagao's still dead from the previous engagement, so there is no mid laner constantly bearing down in terms of damage, and even the dive is just too easy between the Alistar and the Galio.
Now Suning are a Baron up. That is a very long replay, but they're a Baron up. They're looking for the Cloud Drake now. They still have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left on the Baron. And the Colonel's pretty sure this one's in the bag for Suning, but I tend not to trust the people that provide me with chicken. So Preacher, given that you have never handed me a chicken wing, what do you think JDG's chances are?
Well, I'm just going to come out right here and tell you that I do actually like KFC quite a lot. So I will have to side with the Colonel in terms of the win percentage. I mean, take a look. It's 5 kills to 15. You got 2 Infernal Drakes. You got the Baron on your side as well. And the most important thing is you shook it up from game number 1. You keep on going aggressive. Sword Art is going huge this game because he doesn't need to focus on babysitting his backline. He can go forward and start these team fights, and he's actually choosing to do so. So I like this new Suning that we're seeing that's directly in contrast to game number 1.
JDG don't have much of an opportunity to do a whole lot right now. 2 minutes left on the Baron buff. They just have to weather the storm for the time being, but it's going to be hard. SMLZ has picked up 4 items now, fully complete, and Xiaoao is just solo split pushing the top lane, doing so much damage to both the towers and the waves. Seems like it's an almost unstoppable onslaught from Suning, both from the top and bottom lanes.
Yeah, and they're trying to defend it as best as they can. Lumao has got the best kit to do so, but even then, take a look at just how much he's being chunked out. That's ridiculous. Without that shield and door available for this turret, there's pretty much nothing stopping Suning from just taking the entire base.
Now Suning pushing in onto that bottom lane inhibitor. They might be able to take it at this point. Not quite aggressive enough. They have a minute remaining on the Baron buff, so they don't need to push it in right now. They can wait until the wave comes back in.
Yeah, but what's Xiaoao on the top side? He's providing that pressure as well. So now bottom goes, and top is the natural fighting position.
He's pulled 3 to him. He has the GA still available, and Maple will come in with the ultimate of his own. This should be the second inhibitor going down there in the top side of the map. So now Suning have taken down all 3 inhibitors, and they're just going to back out happy. 50 seconds of Baron buff remaining.
It is the completionist way to play League of Legends. I don't know if you ever wanted to go for those 100% runs, but that's exactly what Suning are doing, taking down every single objective on the map and making sure that there's no real way for a comeback, even if they do lose a team fight, which at this point, double Infernal and so much gold ahead is very unlikely for them to do. They should be using their 10k lead to just close this out outright.
And they're going to be looking to do that now. The Baron buff will fall off before they're able to do a whole lot. Elder Dragon will be spawning in a few minutes, but that's not going to be their major point of contention. They have all 3 lanes pushing with the double super minions, so that's going to be a lot of push power in any lane they so choose, now that they have all 3 inhibitors down. And Maple, just 1 Q wipes out the entire backline of that wave.
He's getting to a point where even the Galio is doing a whole lot of damage, and being a tank threat as well, it's too much for JD to deal with. When you consider the damage output, Flawless just hasn't hit his mark in terms of the DPS, so a very good turnout for the substitution of Weiwei. You have to say that this jungle was what you expected it to do, and Suning might want to keep it for game number 3.
That said, I mean, JDG, they still have a fighting chance, debatably, if they can get a good team fight, but it would have to be pretty much a miracle. They have 4 items now almost onto Zoom, and they have the 4 attack items on Imp, so they have the damage. Question is if they can survive long enough to put it out.
Kind of feels as if they don't have the front line though, so with nobody interrupting all of these engages, it could well just go straight to their back line and kill the DPS.
That's what they're going to have to be looking out for in this fight. Xiaoao looking for the flank position. Flawless Duet, Paranoia, both have gone down. And Zoom flashes into the backline. Hemoplague onto 4. He might be able to stall this one out on the side of the fight. He heals so much, and he's going to be alive. They take down Maple. It looks like JDG might have defended the Nexus in this one. That's going to be the ultimate coming out from Xiaoao, but doesn't get a whole lot done. Lumao barely surviving the ultimate from SMLZ, but JDG defend the push.
All right, the frantic defense actually works out for JD. They managed to find the split of Maple. He's off on the side trying to kill Zoom, but the healing is too much for him, and they managed to hold on to this game for a little bit longer. I thought that when you said there's still a fighting chance for JD, you meant in game number 3, not in this actual game, but they managed to stall it out.
Well, I mean, Zoom, eventually Vladimir will scale.
Eventually.
Eventually. And he's hit the point where at the very least his healing is incredibly significant. We saw in that fight he healed a ton from both the Hemoplague and the Crimson Rush. So he has the potential to play as that frontline now, which is something you were saying that they were lacking in earlier fights. So now they might have the ability to keep through these fights. But again, that was just one fight. Baron coming up in 30 seconds, Elder in 40. If Suning get both, I don't know how JDG are going to fight back.
Still a huge if, though, and that if is if Sword Art doesn't decide to use his headbutt to knock you out. It was used onto Zoom, but on a diagonal angle, so he wasn't actually put that far out of the way for his team to still be a frontline. But if Sword Art decides to bump him even further back, then that could spell the doom of the Vladimir, because they can just divide and conquer. Zoom still needs to be very careful, even though he is tanky and can recover.
Zoom just going to be put on wave clear duty, it looks like, as they look to contest perhaps towards the Baron. JDG need to play this very carefully if they want to have a chance coming into this. Baron not going to be started up yet by Suning. They're going for the very careful bait.
Going for it, but the wards are set up in such a way that Suning can play defensively. They can't spot out where JD are coming too far ahead of plan, but they've got enough knowledge such that they can always pull off the Baron if need be.
JDG won't be able to clear out the ward either. So now they just have to be really careful about these next few seconds, because the Elder Drake has spawned, as has the Baron.
This is dangerous.
Xiaoao's looking towards the bottom lane.
Yeah, he's just trying to bust it straight down into it. He's even got the TP, so Suna just have to play defensive. They don't need to do anything, don't need to go for the Baron, don't need to even take the team fight. They just need to wait for Shower.
They see he's backing out though, so they say that they can start the Baron. This is brilliant split pressure usage from Suning. They'll take down a Nexus Tower, and this Baron should be all but uncontested.
Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous, but Nocturne's going in.
Paranoia comes down, and it looks like the Vanguard's Edge will do a little bit of damage, but shouldn't take anyone out. The GA is popped, and JDG should be able to take this down. Imp is trying to solo out the Elder Drake.
Dangerous.
If he gets spotted out, this is such a huge problem, but he's not going to get spotted just yet. Sword Art will see it on the scan.
No.
He's so stuck. He gets forced out, and he flashes away, has a good QSS. He's still alive somehow, but he's not going to be able to save himself, and he goes down, as do the hopes of JDG. The Elder and the Baron both in the pocket of Suning.
Oh, that is a heartbreaking situation. Imp got it down to half HP, but it might just well be over.
Suning just going to push this one in. They have the Elder Drake burn. 3 dragons to their name. And the teleport coming in. JDG want to make a last-ditch stand here, but they lose Flawless. Yagao and Zoom, the Dumpling Brothers, the only 2 remaining. The Hemoplague is going to do a hell of a lot to help Zoom, but it's not going to be enough. Yagao stalling out. They get a return kill on the Weiwei, but the Elder Dragon burn is too much for them. Zoom is trying as best he can. He needs to get the 3rd Q, but will he be able to? He gets stunned out of it. That's the triple kill for SMLZ, and this should be the game. Number 2 going over to Suning.
Right back at them. They wait for the minion wave to inevitably beat this entire series. They lost the first game due to indecisiveness, but man, their calls are looking very beautiful and clean in the second game.
Looking just to get the KDA kill onto Imp, and they have taken down the 2nd Nexus Tower. This will be Suning picking up game number 2, bringing it to a game 3.
You just gotta praise the entire squad of Suna. They flip it on its head. Bringing in Weiwei, that aggressive jungle from the very get-go, puts Flawless in a backwards position. When the jungler of Suna can't necessarily, when the jungler of JD can't necessarily do anything on the entire map, it is just yours for the taking. Pressuring down dragons, pressuring down barons, pressuring down the lanes. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, Suning looking so much better in that one, but JDG sort of falling apart a little bit compared to the last game, and I think a lot of that was through the top lane. Zoom just wasn't able to get any semblance of, not even a lead, any semblance of a chance in the lane, and you look at the gold and it reflects that. Suning just had control the entire time.
Always going upwards at a very consistent slope. Fell a little bit behind in terms of the team fight, but they managed to bring it straight back. One of the things that I want to point out is Flawless's damage, or rather lack thereof. It was the Nocturne. He built full AD, you recall, Warrior into GA, and he didn't get to use any of that in the team fights, which means it was pretty much down an entire player. So that was really the difference between the first game and the second game. It was just a whole lot of jungle difference, and we saw the outcome.
Imp as well wasn't able to get a whole lot done with Lumao. You know, they still got the advantage early on. They still got a lot of damage, a lot of stuns in the early trades, but they weren't able to transition it into a whole lot of kills. They weren't able to transition into a dominating lead, which means they didn't really have one across the rest of the map. Like you said, Weiwei was doing one hell of a job in the jungle. The top lane, Zoom was getting shoved in constantly and down so much in CS. If your mid and bot aren't winning significantly, how do you even come back from that?
Yeah, it's so difficult to. And once again, when we talk about the mid and bot also losing, that is because of Sword Art. It's because he's always engaging. He's not waiting for the counter plays, waiting for JD to engage on him so that he can react. He's going straight into them with the Alistar, and I just love to see this, the mechanical prowess of this guy as opposed to the shot calling. Yeah, he definitely made a huge impact on this game as well.
For JDG, is it worth banning out Sword Art? Is it worth forcing him onto maybe the Tahm Kench so he can't make these plays for his team? Because in both Game 1 and Game 2, Sword Art's plays were the highlights for Suning.
I would definitely say that would put a hamper into their playstyle, because as much as we want to give highlight to Weiwei, because we can easily say they changed him out and he was the person who won, Sword Art's engages was still beautiful, so if you ban him off, could put him on the back foot.
Hopefully they'll be able to figure that one out as they come into game number 3. We'll see who wins the e-commerce wars for this split when we get back with game 3 in a few minutes.
这在做梦啊，清了。
就是跟你说我上血洗你，
只要我们不输，我不会输的。
哎，他针对我，不想玩了。
怎么有点小紧张啊？
我也是有，
我也有点，怎么回事啊？
我有点小紧张。
深呼吸，深呼吸。
哦，这波出来的，这波出来的，就这波，就这波，看我可以吗？看我。
可以。
看。AD 没闪，我先退。你们看。
辛德拉没打，辛德拉空大了。
AD 没闪，AD 把 AD 杀了，赢了。
辛德拉空大了，没闪。辛德拉没闪。辛德拉没闪。辛德拉没闪，赢了。来，能一波吗？可以一波吗？不能一波。
nice，先走，这把翻了。
等水晶。
OK nice。
我们直接越塔，包赢了。
可以。
我们往这边靠，看。手，来，AD 没闪，AD 我上牛头，AD 死了，还有一个，杀了，来上，
帮我听他，来上，
这都能翻，
来上，
赢了吗？
可以，哇，这都赢了，
是在做梦，行了，
来上，
打得好，兄弟们打得好，
我上来要么爆 C， 要么爆炸。
可以。我希望你是前者。那我跟你讲，我这样要么10杀，要么10死。可以。
他们开了，
帮 AD，先帮 AD， OC。
OC 死了，
没事，上牛，牛死了，
正面没有，恶将头，一波，
赢了，
一波
，AD 看 AD 杀了他，
哎，一波，能杀吗？
不杀，
还有春哥，
一波，nice，下一把，加油！
哎，
我可以打，杀割裂，
可以接团，
我干出吸血鬼了，吸血鬼没闪，吸血鬼杀一下，
这边看我，
辅助，
再来一个，看 AD，
nice，一波，nice，
打了一颗，是不是跟你说我上血 C 你那个？
我们往后拖，他们真的可以，
随便赢，往后拖真的随便赢。
是的。
听我说，慢一点过去，我还要抢机会，
我还有一个眼，
离不牛3000。
哎，来看一下，我们在这儿，
你们冲，
打你去打，不要进去，就这样去
啊，就这样。
音普你去打上面的这个，没事，
可以打，
打住头，打住下，打，你们，
打，
没事，可以，是，
没事，他们打不了大龙。
哇，他们出来还要逼大龙的，真的。
不是我们逼大龙，我们开，只要我们不失误，不会输的。
打了，慢一点，要慢点。
不用去。
猪头没有牛腰。
要去。
打！我们打！没事了，打！赢了，一波，nice，中了一波，可以。
一波，没杀，没杀，没杀，
对不起，兄弟们，今天我心态不稳。
没事，我懂。
突然发现我能用的英雄真多啊，好厉害哦！不像某些人啊，只会玩一个卡莎。不要像某些人，你直接可以点名道姓了，你这个太明显了。哎，他针对我，教练，不想玩了，害怕。
哎，你说。
然后听到队友声音调小一点。
好的。
又不想听队友说话。不想听队友说。
开始了。
不想听你的。
你们太能笑了，影响到了我。
没事，冲！
来吧，
加油！
打龙，好，拦住！
我看，
瞎子来不了。
好，
救一下我！
可以追吗？开了，
开了，冲！雷子没闪，雷子没闪，能杀我吗？开，雷子，下路可以一波，
中了，
他没闪，
中了吧，下路线快没了，一波中了，
来吧，一波吧。
别秀了，中了一波。
来中了，快看哦，
有救赎吗？天直接加速。
没有。来一波，下一把，别激动，别激动。
废了，我再来。
10秒 1Q，
先走，没闪，瞎子没闪，先走。
我有果实，来，
看神女，刘继忠看神女。哎，我有电没叫神女。
哎，继续看。
神女没闪。这。我追上面，他没。那上面，去上面。瞎子要看瞎子。等一下，我还跟是闪现，我把他顶了。打。来，走，我死了，没事。来，慢慢来，不要着急。
再集中。
往里点。
真的集中。
瞎子在这边，瞎子，知道我在。瞎子，慢点，下，我不会死。瞎子死了，我扛 AD 了。他们吃了 ，AD 没闪，慢点，慢点。我死了，打鳄鱼。一波，来了，接了，去，一波，拆家，别杀人，真的别杀人，来，